Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Connor. I'm chair of the screenwriting department, and it's a great privilege to introduce John Avildsen. And I say that not only as a lover of film or as a member of the New York Film Academy staff, but also as a guy who grew up in the 70s outside of Philadelphia, where this movie is gospel. You got to know you're Rocky to survive in the mean streets of Philly and Wilmington, Delaware, where I grew up. I want to mention Mr. Avildsen's career spans decades. He directed Jack Lemmon to an Oscar and Save the Tiger.
I want to be in love with something. Anything. Just an idea. Dog, a cat. Anything. Just something.
He directed Susan Sarandon and the late great Peter Boyle and Joe.
Why didn't you tell me about Frank? Why didn't you tell me Frank was dead? I heard you, Daddy. You killed Frank. I loved him.
The niggers. The niggers are getting all the money. Why work? You tell me, why the fuck work when you can screw, have babies, and get paid for it?
And along the way created some of the most indelible images in cinema, be it the crane kick in Karate Kid.
No mercy! No mercy! Play the fist, Johnny! Finish him!
Morgan Freeman and his bat playing Crazy Joe and Lean on Me.
You are not inferior. Your grades may be, your school may have been, but you can turn that around and make liars out of those bastards in exactly 1 hour when you take that test and pass it and win.
Or Sylvester Stallone running up the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum in Rocky. In Rocky, he created also one of the great Cinderella stories, possibly the greatest cinematic David ever to knock down Goliath. Cost about $1 million, made well over $100 million. You don't have to be too good at math to know that's pretty good. And then it came Oscar time, where it was up against All the President's Men, Network, Bound for Glory, a little movie called Taxi Driver, and it beat them all. So it was with great modesty privilege to present a wonderful director who also, by the way, sometimes edits his own films, sometimes is his own camera operator, and for you filmmaking students, you know that's not easy. John Avildsen, being interviewed tonight by Tova Leiter.
I do a lot of home movies, that's why.
Now you worked actually, before you directed the first movie, you worked in all capacities, right, on movie sets.
You bet.
How important was that?
Well, I'm not of the film school world.
But you just studied at NYU.
Excuse me?
Did you study at NYU?
Yeah, but not. I had no interest in movies in those days.
I see.
My dream was to have my own advertising agency by the time I was 30. And then I went to work for an agency in New York, and the guy who I was working for, he dreamed about movies. And he got me excited about it, and he quit the advertising business and went to work for Fellini and Antonioni in Italy at the same time I got drafted. So he spent a couple of years over there, and I spent a couple of years in the Army. When he came back, I got out of the Army, and I worked for him on his first movie, a thing called The Greenwich Village Story. And after that, I said, forget it, this is so much more fun than advertising. That's how I got started. And I went to CCNY, had a film school, and I went there in the evenings after working on this Greenwich Village Story for a couple of months. And I felt that I wasn't really learning anything. I had already learned from, being on the set every day and yelling quiet. I was the assistant director. And the fact that my parents invested in the movie, I'm sure had nothing to do with my getting the job. But after that experience, I was hooked. Let me ask you guys a question. How many of you saw Rocky for the first time this evening? Oh, that's good. If you see it on broadcast television, it's about a half an hour shorter. Over the years, it's been shrunk to accommodate the commercials. And it's 25% shorter now. And it still evidently works for, because nobody, calls up the TV station and says, this thing is terrible. So the lesson there is that it can always be shorter. It's a good thing to remember. I was a great fan of Frank Capra. He said, you got all these people sitting in a dark room, you gotta keep them awake. And the less time they're in the room, the less chance they are that they'll fall asleep, right? So you get them in there, don't keep them there too long.
Now I have to tell you a story because I was a friend of your agent at the time, Marvin Moss.
Oh, really?
And I remember he said on Christmas Eve or something, he said, I gotta go and drop by and say hello to my client. It was Christmas Eve.
Uh-huh.
And we went to your apartment at the time, and you were sitting and watching fight movies, boxing movies, with a young actor called Sylvester Stallone. I was introduced to him. I don't know who the hell he is, and his wife, Sasha.
Right.
And I didn't think too much of it. I didn't think too much is going to come out of some unknown actor and a director sitting watching fight films,
Yeah, I watched a lot, because I knew zippity-doo-dah about fighting before I got involved in this thing, and I looked at a lot of fight films, and the fighting looked so phony baloney. It was just
One of the most valuable contributions Avildsen made to Rocky was shooting these rehearsal films. Films which until today had never before been broadcast.
When I first started making features, I would use the 8mm camera to do rehearsals with. When I started Rocky, I whipped out the old 8mm and started shooting the fight rehearsals, because I knew from looking at a lot of fight films that usually in fight films the footage didn't look so good, and I wanted to make this look as good as possible. So I figured if I shot the actors so that they could see themselves, they could see their progress, and they could see how much work they had to do. And Sylvester in this shot could see he had to go on a diet. When they first showed up, Sylvester and Carl Weathers, in the ring, they started saying, well, I'll do this and I'll do that. And I suggested to Sylvester that he go home and write the fight out. Write out the lefts and the rights and the punches and the jabs, and then we would learn that, like a ballet. Sylvester came back with 30 pages of lefts and rights, and that's what we started to learn. And 6 weeks later, when it came time to finally shoot the fight, they had it down.
To this day, a lot of people think Rocky won the fight. He didn't, but he won our hearts. And in 1977, 3 Academy Awards for Best Editing, Best Director, and Best Picture.
And the winner is John G. Avildsen for Rocky.
Oh, my goodness. I guess what Rocky did was give a lot of people hope. And there was never a better feeling than doing that. And I had a lot of people who gave me things. Sylvester Stallone gave me his guts and his heart and his best shot. Thank you. Thank you.
Rehearsing is real important. I'm a big fan of rehearsing. A lot of directors, no, just, let's do it, and that's another school. But I find that a lot of terrific stuff happens during the rehearsal period, and you get other ideas. And when I say rehearse, I don't mean with the crew there. I mean before the thing begins, weeks before, right? At least 2 weeks, where you can take the actors and go to the places where the thing's actually going to be shot, and without the pressure of, oh my God, look what time it is, you go through the scenes a few times, and what about this, and what if you look out the window, and what time is the sun going to set? Let's get that shot, be sure, and blah, blah, blah. So you can do all sorts of stuff beforehand, so when you finally come to do it, you never want to hear anybody say, where does the camera go, right? You figured that out a long time ago, and everybody's got a storyboard, everybody's got a schedule, we're going to do these shots before lunch, and then blah, blah, blah. It makes things go a lot better, because it's once the shooting begins, it's a manufacturing process. You're under the gun constantly, there's never enough time, and the more you're prepared, the better that time's going to be spent.